Okay, so let's talk about this world famous Smokey Nagata. So you must have seen most of the videos in YouTube and in on Instagram, whereas in this golden Supra, ripping through the highway in the UK. So this car was basically made by this guy called Smokey Nagata. So this guy was born in rural Japan with his family being in the farming industry. So this guy started developing his passion more about engines, uh, with his with his trucks, with his farming trucks, whereas in they used to take these products from point A to point B. So since he was sometimes driving in it, he also helped out with his dad to wrench on them, and he started liking it more and more, and then he wanted to learn a lot of things in terms of engines. So what did he do? He started at the age of 14, I think. He bought himself a motorcycle, which is crazy. Nobody buys a motorcycle when they're 14 years old, right? So this way was crazy back then only. So he bought a motorcycle when he was 14, and then he started experimenting on his farm and all that stuff. And then later, at the age of 15, somehow he made some money here and there. He scrapped out his old junk, and then he bought a car which was Nissan GTO, I think, back in early 1980s, I think. So once he bought that car, what did he do? After he bought that car, he didn't know how did it run. So one of his neighbor, was working in this company called Toyota. So he went and asked him, "Could you help me with working on this car after your work hours?" So he I think he gladly accepted it, and then they were both wrenching on that car after his shift hours. So finally, after a few months, he got it running and stuff. This was remember, this was at the age of 16. So he got it fixed. So he started taking it out for a spin, and then he went to his school in his car at 16 years old. He started parking where his teachers are supposed to be supposed to park their cars. So he started driving these cars at the young age, which was very illegal back then. So this got him kicked out of the school, and his most probably his parents also would be really angry with this. So what did his neighbor do? He got him a job in Toyota. So he started working as a mechanic in Toyota, and he wanted to learn more knowledge. So I think he worked there for 4 years. He put in a lot of effort. He made a name for himself in the Toyota industry, and people started recognizing his skill, and a lot of customers came in calling for Nagata for his touch up on the car. So this uh, helped him started building his name slowly here and there, and then he got himself another car, and he started working on this car more than he worked on his work. So this again got him kicked out. So he didn't take this as a failure. So what did he do? He wanted to make something big for himself. So he knew that he couldn't make something big in the locality where he was living in, whereas he was living in a rural area, right? So there isn't much going on, especially in the racing industry, right? So what did he do? He moved from his hometown to Tokyo, Japan, whereas there's a lot of car culture going on. It's a huge market, not just for the cars, also for the bike, also for a lot of uh, animation in industries and all that stuff. So he moved there, and he got himself a work at this company called as Trust. So Trust is a backing company for Grady performance parts. So I think you must have seen this Grady here and there, Grady Turbo, Grady performance kits everywhere, all over the internet, right? So these guys were a sister company to Trust, I think. So these guys, hired Smokey Nagata. So he was working for this company named as Trust, right? So he was working on, especially on the turbos and the intake manifolds. So he was getting very good at his job, and his knowledge, his thirst for knowledge, was not coming down. So what did he do? So he found another racing, team who was working along with Trust. So what did he do? He went and asked for, if he could give them another hand on, working on those cars. So what did they do? They were like, okay, fine. Since I got another helping hand, I might just use it, right? That's what everybody would think. So he only went there without, asking for some kind of salary or something like that. He just went in there to gain more knowledge. So he went in there, he started working with the racing team, and he started learning more about how the aerodynamic works, how, how can you make more power out of, the engine and all that stuff. And he started working on his car, after his shift got over. So this got wind to his bosses, and his bosses got to know what he was doing because he was using the company's resources back then. So the bosses got to know this, and they spoke to him, and then they actually wanted to throw him out. But since Nagata made a name for himself in terms of the tuning industry, people started knowing who he was because customers started coming and asking, especially for Nagata, to touch up on their car. So the bosses couldn't fire him, so they made a deal saying that, the bosses told Nagata not to let others know. So this should be a top secret, uh, in terms of Nagata and the boss. So I'll come back to the top secret part when the whole top secret, the word they used it. So he started working on them, and later he wanted to branch out. So he left Trust, and then he 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 opened up a garage named as Top Secret, with the Top Secret, uh, you know um, deal that they had with the boss. So he opened up a tuning garage in Japan, in Tokyo, Japan, and then he started tuning more of his customers' cars initially because he had to get in some kind of money in. So he made some kind of money a little bit here and there, and he bought himself a car which was a MK4 Supra Generation 5. So he got that car in. So since the 2JZ engine, so you might be knowing about the 1JZ and the 2JZ engines, right? So the 2JZ engines were really great. Even now they're really great in terms of, the low power end. So the initial low RPM to the mid range, it was really good. The Supra is amazing, and it was like a rocket. So what did he do? He didn't like it. He wanted more power out of it. So he took out the 2JZ engine. Uh, he swapped it with the Nissan Skyline R34's engine, which was the RB26. So he put that engine, the inline 4 engine, in the Toyota Supra, and he put in dual turbos in it, which made insane horsepower. I think it went up to somewhere between, the 1,000 horsepower range. So he got that machine all tuned up, and then he wanted to hit the top speed. So what did he do? He packed up the whole entire Supra. He took it to the UK. So he wanted to test it out in the the highway of the UK. What did he do? Which was, which had Japanese registration on it. So he he pinged uh, Japanese magazine people, the UK magazine people, and they made a story about it. So he finally made a burnout in the highway, and then he started doing his uh, runs on the highway. So when he did his final run, which I think he almost reached up to 193 field horsepower, which is crazy. I think miles per hour. Sorry, he reached about 193 miles per hour, which is insane. Nobody reaches that, especially on the highways. At 4 a.m. So after he hit that mark, what happened? The cops got to know, and then they started following him, and then eventually they had to stop him. So he stopped down, and then he was put behind bars. So this made a huge news back in Japan, back everywhere else. Whereas in uh, how did it got his news spread out, right? Because in the UK highway, nobody could beat his record uh, of top speed. So this caught wind everywhere, all around the world, and the eventually he had to pay some kind of money to the government, and he was banned in the UK for 10 years. So he went back to his hometown, to Tokyo, Japan, and he had to sell it because there was another offer which was given from the very wealthy family from the Middle East. So I think they made an offer, and then he sold it to them basically. So so he took that money and he wanted to build something crazier with it. So what did he do? He actually wanted to. He was waiting for another Mark 5 Supra, which was supposed to come out back in the 90s, mid 90s. So what did he do? He waited for it, but then Toyota unfortunately discontinued the model because the Japan in Japan they made a rule saying that no cars should not go more than 273 miles per hour. So I mean, sorry. So they made a rule in Japan saying that whenever a car is manufactured, it should not be more than 273 no, engine horsepower. Whereas it shouldn't be more than 273 brake horsepower. So this got himself really pissed. What did he do? He took matters into his own hands. So he wanted to create something more wilder. So he took the Mark 4 Generation 5 Supra, the old same thing as the other one. He swapped out the engine. He took out the 2JZ engine again. So there was another car called as Toyota Century. So which is very luxurious. You have you know you can rest your feet in the seat, inside the seat. So it was very luxurious. I think it was very expensive back then, but it had this engine. It had a 5 liter V12 engine. I think it was one GE engine, one JZ engine. I think I'm not sure. So I think it was a 5 liter V12 engine. So he swapped that out, put it in his Toyota Supra Mark 4. But this time, since it was the 5 liter engine was not making that much of power, what did he do? He completely broke down the engine. He took out the old pistons. He forged his own pistons and his own piston rods and own crank with the engine. And because most the other tuning shops wouldn't make so much, they were not ready to make because it was, I don't know, maybe they had different rules. The government rules were different back there. So they what did he do? He made those crazy engine, crazy pistons. He put it in those engine, and then which was a V12 engine, uh, and then he properly assembled it. He put it back into the Mark 4. which made surprisingly 1,000 horsepower, which is insane. So he wanted to test this out again. So this time he didn't want to make that mistake to go back in the UK and to get banned, or to get penalized, right? So what did he do? He took it out to a different country. I think he went out to France where they had this oval track. So he in that oval track you can test out these tracks. I mean, you can test out these cars in those tracks without using a steering wheel, which the track itself would take you in thousand. I mean, in the 173 miles per hour range without you using your steering wheel. So he took it out. I think he hit somewhere in the 223 miles per hour range, which is insane. Nobody can do that even now if you think about it, which is insane. Nobody can do the custom pistons, custom piston rods. Nobody would take up such a challenge and do such things. So which is crazy. So every year that he made out a new car, which came out like a Frankenstein, literally like a Frankenstein. He used to swap these old, the engines on the car, the factory engines with a different powerful, the stock engines, and then he tuned it up so that it would go faster than the factory cars, which was insane. So he kept up with the with the world of the racing as well. So he helped with people like uh, he helped tune cars with people like the Drift King, like Suchiya, all these people, and he was making performance cars. He was tuning performance cars for people in the racing industry as well. So even now he's still very active in terms of the whole uh, the tuning industry scene, the racing industry scene. So which was crazy. So it was a huge hit, because in the 1990s and the mid 1990s, they made the Japanese domestic market made amazing cars. They came out with the really amazing cars like Nissan R34 Skylines. Even the older generations, the R33, R32s, they were really crazy, because they used to use those cars in terms of rallying. And Toyota came out with the Mark generation Supra, which was Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, and Mark 4s as well. The Mark 3 also was good, but the Mark 4 really, you know, which was out of the world, because when you sat in it, it was like a rocket ship. The whole console, the whole interior. The engine was really good. The engine was very powerful back then. And Mazda also had RX-7s. Mazda's RX-7s were a rotary engines, which is completely different from an inline or a V engines, or a box engine. So a rotary engine will have a triangle shape like a Dorito engine. We call it as a Dorito engine, which will use the Dorito as the spinning, as like a piston, whereas in it will produce a lot of power output. So RX-7s, um, the old the Toyota A86, Tube, all these cars. These cars were really amazing, and Mitsubishi came out with the Lancer Evolutions, which is also crazy. Those cars are really out of the world, because it started from the rallying industry. They made those cars only for specifically for the rally, uh, you know which you know also made like the homologation cars, which was not that great, but then the people who modded it made it more greater in terms of the streets. So yeah, in terms of the whole the video, Nagata helped. with people who are in the industry, with performing the cars more better, not just in the racing world, even in the street racing world, even with hitting the milestone of how much can a car go. So he was really a great mechanic of his time. So that's the whole video about Smokey Nagata. I hope you guys liked it.